you're watching Gearz, brought to you by Holley Performance Products. Fuel your passion. And Cornwell Tools, the choice of professionals.
Hey, welcome to Gearz. You know, a while back we rolled in a well-worn 98 Trans Am and started doing some upgrades on it to show the incredible potential that's in these fourth generation Camaros and Firebirds. Now, since this one's already packing a pretty hot LS engine, our focus on this one has been handling, to get this thing to handle like the performance car that it is. Our first stop was the front suspension, where we pulled out everything, including the massive boat anchor front crossmember, and replaced it with BMR tubular components, like crossmember, control arms, sway bar, and springs. Then we also added adjustable Coney shocks. The rear suspension got more of the same, with new springs, shocks, and control arms. But we also added a tubular torque arm and a drive shaft loop to take care of any other weak areas. So at this point, we basically have a brand new road course style suspension that was affordable and it's still street legal. So that's awesome. But obviously at this point, we're still missing a couple of key components to a suspension upgrade, like brakes and wheels and tires. Obviously, we're going to take care of that right now. Take a look. For brakes, we went to Baer and got these Pro Plus 13s for the front. Now, as you can see, these feature a massive 13-inch drilled and slotted rotor, as well as an equally massive 6-piston caliper. Now, you can see it comes with the bracketry, it comes with the pads. You see how the 6 pistons are laid out? This is a nice setup, and it comes with all the hardware, the hoses, everything you're going to need to bolt it in. Now, the rear's very similar. Check this out. This is the SS4 Plus 13 kit. It's got the 4-piston caliper. Then you have the 13-inch drilled and slotted rotors. You have the internal emergency brake, the brackets, the hardware, even the hoses. Now, I know you're probably wondering about the color on these calipers. This is called Aztec Copper, and it's one of the many powder coating colors that Baer can put on your calipers so they can match or accent your vehicle. That is a really cool option. All right, let's get busy. Removing the old brakes is just a matter of unbolting the calipers and pulling off the rotors. And once that's done, you're ready to start putting the new stuff on. The first step is to install the base bracket on the spindle. It's a good idea to use some Loctite on these threads because you don't want them coming loose. Next, we'll slide on the rotor and hold it in place with some lug nuts. Then, slide on the caliper and torque it down. Finally, install the braided steel hose, making sure it's clear of all suspension components through the full range of motion. That takes care of the front. I told you this was pretty much a bolt-on deal, especially on the front. Now, the rear is a little more involved, still something that you can do in your garage. Having a lift helps, but you can do this with jacks and jack stands. Obviously, the first thing that needs to come off are the stock calipers and rotors. Okay, with this e-brake shoe out of the way, you can see that we need to remove this backing plate so we can replace it. The problem is, you'll notice that this backing plate does not have a big enough hole to slide over the flange. So that means we need to go into the rear end and remove the axles. Now wait, before you freak out and go, I don't do anything with rear ends. It's a pretty simple deal on these C-clip axles. We're going to show you how to do it step by step. First, remove the differential cover and drain the fluid. Okay, once you have the cover off, your eye is going to go everywhere. So just ignore everything you're seeing except that pin. That's what we need to get. but as you can see, we cannot get it from this side. So we're going to roll the axle around. Just keep going to that side. Now you see this bolt right there? That needs to come out so we can slide that pin out. Okay, once your pin is out, you're looking for an access point to get inside the differential. So we're going to turn one of the axles, rotate it around. Obviously that's not it because you got this big center thing there. You can't get inside. So we'll keep rotating it, keep rotating it. That's the back part of the pin. And then there's your access point right there. That allows you to get up inside and get the C-clips. Now it's just a matter of pushing the axle in from the outside to expose the C-clip in the differential. Then take a magnet and pull the C-clip out. Now just slowly slide out your axle. Make sure you keep the weight off of the seal because you don't want to rip that. And now is a good time to come in here and look at your seals and your bearings, because if those are bad or leaking, now is the time to replace them. Now you can remove the backing plate that holds the caliper and the e-brake and install the new one. At this point, you can reinstall the axles, pop in the C-clips, reinstall the center pin and the retaining bolt, replace the cover, and refill it with gear lube. And that's all there is to removing C-clip style axles. With that done, now we're ready to slide on the new rotors and install the new calipers and pads, and you're ready to bleed the system. Okay, the final piece of the puzzle when you're building a vehicle for performance handling is wheels and tires. Take a look. For wheels, we went to Forgeline Wheels because they specialize in virtually any kind of wheel, whether you're running a race car or a street machine. Now for the Redbird, we got some of these GW3 wheels from their Performance Series line, and the sizes are 17 by 9.5 in front and 17 by 11 in back. Yeah, they're big. Now these are a 3-piece modular wheel forged from 6061 T6 aluminum to give a combination of lightweight and high strength. So this is the perfect wheel for street and track use. Now since Forgeline offers custom powder coating as well, we had the centers done in a translucent gunmetal with the polished outer rim. So these wheels are really going to pop on that red car. For tires, we went with Mickey Thompson's Street Comp Radial because this is an ultra high performance tire engineered for high speed handling and cornering with a compound that will give good traction in the wet or the dry. So this is a perfect choice for a street driven car that can also pull double duty on the autocross on the weekends. Now the sizes we're using are 275/40/17 on the front and a massive 315/35/17 on the rear. And that's about the widest rubber you can stuff under a 4th generation Firebird or Camaro. All right, with the wheels and tires in place, you can see the full impact of what we've done here. It's a little bit wider, it's a little bit lower, and the visual impact of those wheels and tires and brakes gives you just a hint of what this car might be capable of. But it doesn't show you the full extent of what we've done underneath. If you need a reminder of that, check out that pile of parts. Yeah. Now, obviously, when you've done this kind of work, You need to get the car aligned, and you need to properly bed in the brakes before you take it out and rip on it. But hopefully this gives you an idea of the potential of these 4th generation Firebirds. I mean, they're still affordable. Usually they don't require a complete build like an older vehicle. They just require the right aftermarket parts to accent what they already have, which means this old Redbird is about ready to fly.
And now it's time for another quick tip.
You know, everybody knows that eventually you're going to have to add some oil to your engine. And since it's going to be between oil changes, you're probably not going to have the tools in the funnel to put the oil in, which makes getting the oil in that filler hole kind of a challenge depending on what kind of engine you have. Now, in the past, we've shown you how to make a funnel, cutting off the top of an oil bottle, or even taking a piece of paper and rolling it up into a makeshift funnel. But what if you don't have access to this stuff? What if you're on the side of the road? Well, there's a solution right here in front of you in the form of your dipstick. Now check this out. You just take your oil filler cap off, then pull out the dipstick and put it right down in the oil filler hole. Then take your bottle of oil with a spout at the top and slowly pour it right down that dipstick. The viscosity of the oil is going to pull it right down that dipstick into the hole, and you won't spill a drop provided you don't go too fast. Now, if by chance you don't have a dipstick that's long enough or whatever, you can also do this with a piece of string or wire or just something that's going to guide that oil down into that hole. But obviously a dipstick's the best because it's right here, and then when you're done, you just slide it right back in. If you'd like to learn more tips to make your life easier in the shop, check out the tips page on the website.
And now, Parts Bin.
Everybody knows that door panels take a lot of abuse, from the weather to vibration to you pulling and pushing on them all the time. And because of that, replacement door panels are pretty easy to find. What's not easy to find is some of the metal trim that these door panels had. For example, this metal trim on the 80 through 86 Ford pickups. That piece of trim's not easy to find. And if you could find it, it usually doesn't fit very well. Well, that has all changed because LMC has done a complete retool and come out with these trim pieces for the Ford pickups. Now look at this. This is bent and shaped just like the originals. Even the shape of the metal is right. And these are made out of chrome-plated steel like the originals. So these aren't flimsy little cheap pieces. You have factory-style mounting tabs, and you have the same flip pins that the originals had. So they'll mount to original panels or aftermarket panels. So if you have an 80s Ford truck or Bronco and you need some trim for the door panels, LMC is where you got to go to get it. If you have a classic vehicle, you know that the stock sealed beam bulbs just look right. But when you turn them on, they're pretty dim, especially compared to a modern LED light. The problem is a modern LED light doesn't always look good on a classic vehicle. So what do? Well, Holley has come out with what they call the RetroBright light system. Now check this out. At first glance, you will swear you're looking at a standard sealed beam bulb. But if you turn it over, you can see that there is a high output LED cartridge that's going to give you twice the light output. It's going to create less heat. It's going to last 6 times longer and draw less amperage. But that's not all. They're also available in square and round configuration, and you can get them in the 3000 Kelvin classic white or the 5700 Kelvin modern white if you need a little more power. The best part is these are designed to slide right in place of your stock headlights and look stock until you turn them on and you can actually see where you're going. If you drive your classic at night, this is one of the wisest upgrades that you can make. You know, there was a time when building a vehicle required a trip to the muffler shop when it was time for an exhaust system. Well, fortunately, that's not the case anymore, especially if you have a 67 through 72 GM truck, because Flowmaster has a dual exhaust system that you can bolt on in your driveway. Yeah, check this out. As you can see, it starts clear up at the transmission crossmember, so you have plenty of options to hooking up to headers or manifolds. Then it flows back into an H-pipe crossover for maximum power. All the bends are mandrel bends for great flow. It's 2.5-inch tubing, and then it flows back into a pair of Series 44 Flowmaster mufflers, once again to give you the flow and the sound that you're after. And then it goes into the pipe that goes over the rear axle. Now, from here on back, you have 4 options for your tailpipe. First, you can do a dump that dumps right behind the rear tire and you don't see the pipe. Or you can do a traditional exit behind the rear tire where you do see the pipe. Or you can run straight out the back, tight to the body, if you have a lowered vehicle. And if you're running a big bumper, you have these drop pipes, so you can run straight out the back underneath the bumper. Then, of course, you have all the hardware and bracketry you're going to need to put it in. And there's enough tubing here that this will fit a long bed or a short bed truck. If you have a classic Chevy truck and you need exhaust for it, Flowmaster has the sound and the system for you.
Tool Tech, brought to you by Cornwell Tools, the choice of professionals.
You know, one of the main tools that you'll find in any toolbox around the world are ratchets and sockets. Everybody has some ratchet handles and a series of sockets that allow them to loosen and tighten bolts. I mean, you really can't work on cars without them. But not all ratchets are created equal, so it's important to know their purpose so you can get the best use out of them. Now, the most common ratchets are your 1/4-inch drive, your 3/8 drive, and your 1/2-inch drive. And the size of the ratchet pretty much dictates what kind of work you're going to do with it. For example, as you can see, the 1/4-inch drive is pretty small, and the sockets are small. So these are great for working in tight little areas on small bolts. And most of these are rated to handle up to 100 foot-pounds. Now, the next step is your 3/8 ratchet. This is the most common. This is the one that everybody should have 3 or 4 of these in their box. And the reason being is they're really nimble. They're still small enough that they can get into fairly tight areas, but they're also strong enough to handle some pretty heavy hardware, especially if you put on one of these longer handles. Now, the only danger here is that these are only rated for about 250 foot-pounds. So if you find yourself breaking off the anvils or cracking some of your sockets, you probably want to step up to the 1/2-inch drive. Now, as you can see, man, just the thickness of the handles and the heads are completely different than what we've shown you so far. And of course, the hardware, these things will handle some really big bolts. Look at the thickness of the sockets. This is for handling suspension components, bumpers, that kind of thing. Most of your 1/2-inch drive ratchets are rated to handle around 500 foot-pounds. But sometimes you need something even bigger than that. If you're working on a truck or a tractor or a piece of equipment, or heck, anything that's rusty, there's a good chance that you are going to find a bolt that's going to take some serious torque to break loose. And that's where these massive 3/4 and 1-inch drive ratchets and sockets come in. As you can see, they absolutely dwarf the standard ratchets that most people use. And one look at that big head and that really long handle, you can tell these are designed for some serious torque. And if you compare the sockets with the standard socket that we use, you can tell that those were built to do some serious cranking. How much? Well, the 3/4-inch drive is usually rated at 1,000 foot-pounds, and the 1-inch drive, yeah, those are usually rated to handle up to 2,000 foot-pounds of torque. Now, I know you're probably thinking, 2,000 pounds? Man, it is not humanly possible to get that kind of torque on one of these handles. Yeah, it is. You put a long enough handle on there, you'll get that. And that's what these handles are made for, to slide a big old piece of pipe on there so you can get the torque that you need. Now, I know that this size ratchet and sockets are not cheap, and you may never need anything this big. And if you don't, that's great. But if you work on big vehicles or trucks or tractors or anything that's rusty, I can pretty much guarantee you that one day you might have to break out the big guns. And when you have to do that, you're going to be really glad that you got them.
What are you working on? Brought to you by Woodward Fabrication, selling quality metalworking equipment since 1966.
Today's What Are You Working On comes from Eric, and he is from California. And his project is a very unique one. It's a 1941 Cadillac Series 61. If you haven't seen it, check this out. And that is a big, fat sedan. That is a great looking car. Now, he says that he and his dad ran across this thing after they had built a bunch of Model A's, and they were tired of going to shows and seeing all of the other Model A's. So they wanted something different. And he said that his dad was visiting his sister in Idaho and saw this in a field with a for sale sign in it. And he said, that's the first hot rod that I want to build. So they picked it up and started working on this thing. Now, they don't have a lot of money, so this was always designed to be a budget build. So here's what they did. They found a Chevy 454 off eBay for $600. They found a Turbo 400 off Craigslist for $200. And then they found a Ford 9-inch rear end from a wrecking yard for $150. And that is some awesome prices. Then they splurged on the front end. They went to Fat Man's, it sounds like, and they got a $2,500 Mustang II style front end. And he said they cut the car and put that in. He said that was the scariest thing they did. But they said that they watch the show all the time, and they said, you know, if Stacey can do it, we can do it. And that's exactly right. That's what this show is for, to encourage you to get out and do something. Now, he said that this project is not finished yet, but it has taken a real serious turn for him, because he said he just lost his dad a couple months ago to Agent Orange from when his dad was a Marine in Vietnam. But he said the plan is to finish the car out, to honor his dad's memory, and to honor all those veterans that have served. So, man, that is a great, great project and a great point. So, to recognize such a cool project, we hooked up with our buddies at Woodward Fab. We're going to give you one of these big shears so you can cut some metal for the next project that you're working on. And then we're also going to give you one of these deluxe project planning books so you can keep track of everything that you did on that car, all the part numbers, everything. Then we're going to give you a gift card from Holley so you can pick up some products from Holley. And then we're going to give you one of our new Copperhead t-shirts. You can wear that with pride. And then finally, we're going to give you one of these stunt double die casts, because everybody needs to do some stunts once in a while. Now, for the rest of you guys, if you want to get in on this and get your project featured on the show, you got to send it to us. Go to our website, go to Gearz Nation, and submit it into What Are You Working On? The website's also the place to find out more information on any products you may have seen on the show, any Gearz merchandise, and how to join Gearz Nation. You can also see Gearz episodes for free on our YouTube channel and become a channel member. That way you get bonus content and you get early access to all the new episodes. Also, don't forget to check us out on Amazon Prime for Gearz and the Gearz Restoration Series. Finally, don't forget to like us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you're a radio person, make sure you check out our podcast, Tales of a Gearhead. All right, that wraps it up for us today. Hopefully you have something to get out there and work on. Does not have to be a high dollar thing. Eric just showed you he got his whole drivetrain for under $1,000. So it can be done very easily. So get out there, work on something. We'll see you next time.